one of the things that I've heard about, and I'm sure you have an opinion on this, is Kubernetes and containers are not completely synonymous. They're not inextricably linked. Kubernetes is an orchestration system, and you can orchestrate lots of things. So could you separate out one and keep the other? If you do find that Kubernetes suits your wants and needs, but maybe containers are not quite what everybody's doing anymore.
I mean, this is where it gets a little vague. So I've seen lots of talk about Kubernetes on bare metal. But basically Kubernetes becomes, the orchestrator that's going to be able to spin things up on bare metal or handle virtual machines. And there's been lots of projects around that within the kube space to handle VMs as a first-class citizen as well. So I mean, sure, you could use that as your orchestrator. You could also use something else. It depends. And I think that's the most important thing here, is making sure that we still have choice, and that our choice of orchestrator should be something which is application agnostic. It shouldn't be that, oh, I can't choose this certain orchestrator because my application fundamentally won't work because it's built expecting features from this other orchestrator. We need to figure out ways of insulating ourselves from those type of disasters to make sure that we do have freedom of choice.
I've seen that challenge firsthand because I've been doing some work with a product that was designed with Kubernetes in mind. So it makes heavy use of CRDs, or custom resource definitions, to store configuration data and then have another pod pick up that configuration data. And then they realized maybe some people might not want to use Kubernetes for this. So they've sort of backported it to be able to also use HashiCorp's console, because that's another place where you can store key values and you can do service discovery and those types of things. So I think that acknowledgement is there, but it's a whole additional level of work for them to support both the way of Kubernetes doing things or the HashiCorp stack using console and Vault to provide secrets management and config. And that's just two possible implementations. I'm sure there's a third one out there. So, and that's a whole bunch of complexity. I feel like, me personally, I just feel like, nah, I'm going with Kubernetes, and everybody else has to get on the bandwagon.
Well, I guess the thing that I like most about Kubernetes is actually the standardization of a lot of the elements. So we now have, a standard container image format. We have a standard definition for what a network interface is. We have a standard definition for storage. We have even proposed standard definition for service mesh. And I think it's the specifications that Kubernetes is putting out there which are really interesting, because if you're building a product, you can build to interfaces, right, and expect the actual implementations to be swapped out and to be pluggable. So that it does kind of give you that flexibility, as long as the specifications are what everybody is going to use. I think looking at things like Edge, Kubernetes is big. Right? And edge devices are not so big. So we've now got K3S, which is if I implemented Kubernetes slightly differently, still to specification, I can run all of these different device types. I've got a much smaller footprint. So I think that, again, wouldn't have been able to happen without some of the work that's gone into standardizing all of these various different interfaces and APIs. I think that, that's super, super neat. I'm really, happy that that's happened in Kubernetes, because that was something I don't think we saw too much with OpenStack. It was very much a whole lot of stuff that was very heavily interdependent with one another. And you'd be like, oh, well, I'd like to deploy this service on OpenStack. It's like, yeah, sure. All right, well, here is the 400 other services that this depends on that you also need to deploy. You want container images? Well, wait a minute. They rely on object storage and something else and something else. Definitely, I think the composable approach is the better one.